Just a Zombie, Chapter 13. Come down. It doesn't take me long to finish the brain. I'm surprised. I'm not nauseated simply by the thought of it. Maybe an iron stomach is another benefit of being a zombie. Regardless, I eat it all and almost enjoy it. Following Dr. Sutton's orders, I lie on the bed for a few minutes after setting the empty bowl in the chair. I feel fine, but I'm not going to take the chance at standing up too soon. Of course, if I'm a zombie now, what does a little lightheadedness matter? Will I get dizzy and fall over? I wonder what would happen if I break a bone. I need to get a notebook to write down all these questions I have. Or I should be enraged that someone just killed me and turned me into a living, sort of, monster. I really need to get a handle on my emotional response to this scenario. Anger or acceptance? Which will it be? I think it has been long enough of a wait now. It's not like I'm going swimming. I just need to walk down some steps. Still, I stand up slowly, with my hands out to my sides, ready to brace for impact should I topple. I stand without trouble. I feel fine. I decide to bring the brain bowl down with me. Just because I'm a monster doesn't mean I can forget my manners, even with the rage I feel over having been murdered. Standing up is fine. However, walking proves to be a little bit of a challenge. I wobble a bit and my legs feel sore and jelly like, just like after running the mile during gym class. It is dark out in the hallway, so I pause for a moment at the door. The pause serves two purposes. It lets my eyes adjust a bit and rests my weak frame. To my surprise, my eyes adjust quickly. The only light seems to be what is spilling out of the room I'm leaving, but I can see just fine almost immediately, even beyond the stretch of the light. Are my eyes better now? Another question for the list. I'm not going to remember any of these. I make my way to the stairs and find that they go down a bit and then turn around a corner. The stairs are steep and narrow. Luckily, there is a handrail. I grab hold and descend into the darkness. The walls in the stairwell are like the walls in the room. The walls in the stairwell are like the walls in the room I occupied, just vertical wooden plank. It helps to remind me I'm on a ranch. At the bottom of the first set of stairs, I turn the corner and find a similar staircase that looks like it leads down to a hallway. There is a door at the end of the stairs and it is open, providing more light. It is now like I'm in a different house. The floor is carpeted, the walls are painted a cool blue color, and there is one picture hanging on every stretch of wall between doors. There are three doors on the right, only one on the left, and then a railing that leads to more stairs. I hadn't realized this was a three-story house. Of course, I have died and reanimated since I last saw it from the outside. The pictures are old. Two look like they could be of the ranch pastures, or they could really be any open field. There are three photos of people. Again, maybe they are Sutton ancestors, or maybe they're just old pictures that came with the house. I don't need to add these questions to my list. They aren't important, which means these are probably the only questions I'll remember to ask. As I reach the top of the next set of stairs, I hear voices from below, but not clearly enough to decipher the words. I think there's a television on as well. The steps aren't carpeted, so my footsteps rattle loud enough to announce my approach. The voices hush. From the bottom of the stairs, I see down the hall the television that had been on a few days ago when I first entered this house. I get a strange deja vu feeling. Well, not really deja vu, more like the feeling I got when walking into Wrigley Field in Chicago. I'd only ever seen the stadium on television, but then there I was, walking through the entryway, coming out into the seats and seeing the field in person. It was something I knew but had never seen in person until that moment. That's how I feel now. Not not that I'm entering a situation I've experienced before, but that I'm seeing something I've never seen in person before. Except I have seen it in person. That's the only way I've seen this room before. I saw it in person 2 days ago, and now I'm seeing it through reanimated eyes, no longer in person. Will I experience this feeling everywhere I go? It didn't feel like it when I saw Rachel or her mom. Maybe I'm just feeling strange because I know that's the room where I was betrayed, lied to, and assaulted. That's certainly a possibility. As I stand in contemplation, an old man turns into the hallway and jumps slightly at seeing me. "Oh, you startled me, Eric. We haven't met properly yet," the man says as he offers me an outstretched hand. I shake his hand and he continues, "I'm Mark. I suppose you've heard my name by now. It is a pleasure to meet you." "Hi, Mark. You've been changing my clothes and keeping me clean, I hear." He chuckles a bit and avoids making eye contact. "Ah, yes, that has been my responsibility," he says with a smile. He doesn't say anything else or move away. If he is waiting for an expression of gratitude, I don't think he's going to get it. I'll carry my used dishes down, but I'm not ready to thank anyone for turning me into a zombie. Not just yet. Mark meets my eyes again and says, "Well, it is a tough transition. You seem to have made it well enough. Everyone is in the dining room, right through that door there." The smile leaves Mark's round, drooping, white whiskered face as he points back towards the door he had come through. He reminds me of Mickey Rooney, my mom's favorite actor. At least when he was smiling, he did. Mark makes his way past me and up the stairs. I enter the dining room. Dr. Sutton smiles and stands up upon my arrival. "Rachel, will you take Eric's dishes into the kitchen, please?" Rachel complies with her mother's request. She doesn't make eye contact with me. Her eyes stay fixed low through the dish handoff. Part of me seems to remember the crush I had on this pale girl only a few days ago, but that part isn't as loud as the part of me that recognizes I'm in the same room as my murderers. Eric, how do you feel? Dr. Sutton asks. Well, better than I would ever have expected for being dead and having just eaten cow brain, I reply. You know, cow brain is eaten by a lot of people, even in America, as a regular meal option, so it isn't that out of the ordinary, Frank says. I remember Frank, but in this story I've been told Frank is the enemy. Now he's one of the family again? Rachel said he hadn't returned yet when she was last in my room with me. How long ago was that? Well, I'm 17 and have lived in America all my life and even died in America, and this is the first time I've ever eaten any kind of brain, let alone even had it offered to me. At least knowingly. I've eaten a lot of hot dogs, so maybe I can't say that for sure. But knowingly, this is the first time for me. So, ordinary or not, in general, it's odd for me. I'll be playing this conversation from the frustration angle, I see. Seeing Frank here like this, I don't know how else to play it. Good point, Mr. Sutton says. Sorry about the blow to the head, Eric. The cowboy is sitting at the far end of the large oval wooden table. No cowboy hat to be seen. His hands are folded in front of him, resting on the table. He is intently studying them with his eyes. I don't actually feel any pain from it anymore, so I forgive you. It's not like it killed me. Tom Sutton looks up at me when I say this. I see anger in his eyes. Well, the word hangs out as though it is waiting to be followed, but I don't think he ever had any plan to say more than that. Rachel returns from the kitchen and takes up the seat next to her father, her eyes on the tabletop, her face sullen. I look to Dr. Sutton and find her staring intently at me, and then to Frank to find the same posture. Tom is passively hostile. Rachel looks scared. Mickey Rooney seemed jovial out in the hallway. What a crew. When I last saw Rachel, she seemed to be questioning the story she had been told. I'm questioning it right now as well. Eric, I'm sure that in time you'll understand our reasoning for doing what we did. Not only understand, but hopefully you'll appreciate it. You are a pioneer. Dr. Sutton suddenly becomes very animated and enthusiastic, like the car salesman that time my dad told him what price range he was looking to buy from. A pioneer? I think pioneers are usually volunteers, I say. Rachel stands up quickly, nearly knocking her chair over in the process. May I be excused? She asks. I look over and she's looking at her mom. Dr. Sutton looks at her daughter for a moment and then says, yes. Rachel leaves without saying anything else or looking in my direction. Is it just me or was that strange? Dr. Sutton looks at her husband, who has been watching his wife since Rachel asked to be excused. He just shrugs to the doctor now. Eric, Dr. Sutton starts in with a sickly smile, reminiscent of nearly every handlebar mustachioed villain I've ever seen in a cartoon. You'll have to excuse Rachel. She just learned some things that will take her some time to process. I guess the two of you have that in common. This is getting interesting. Rather, this continues to increase in its level of interest. What's going on? I think that sums up all of my questions. Eric, what Rachel has told you isn't all true. She didn't know until just a few minutes ago. We didn't want to worry her with the truth. Ever since we left Atlanta, we have been living a lie. The agency was going to exterminate us, all of us. Mark, Frank, my family. We were marked to be cast away as a failed experiment. But we were not failed. We were alive. We are alive now, almost 3 years later. But only because we are smart. You seem smart to me, Eric. Tell me what you would have done if you had been in our position. What would you have done if you and your family and teammates were to be thrown away like dead rodents? Caught off guard by this new narrative, I don't answer straight away. Besides, it sounds like a rhetorical question. But after a short, however awkward, silence, I do give an answer. I would probably try to protect my family and friends. I'm not sure where the story is headed, and if I want to find out, I should probably present myself as being cooperative. Of course you would, and that's all that we have done. Dr. Sutton stops. Well, I hope the story would go farther than that. Go further than that. No one is saying anything. Dr. Sutton and Frank are looking at each other approvingly. Tom Sutton seems to be sitting this one out. The silence is broken by Mark's return to the dining room. Yes, he looks like Mickey Rooney, all right. He has a binder, which he delivers to Dr. Sutton. She takes the binder and sets it on the table in front of her. Eric, this is our work. These pages contain our research, theories, hypotheses, plans for further experimentation, and everything that we know about our virus. It was started a long time ago before our team ever had the virus on hand to work with. We have kept up our research all these years and logged everything in this binder. This is our life's work. I suddenly recall the stereotypical movie scene when the villain reveals their master plan to the hero, thinking they have the hero incapacitated, but only too soon will the hero be freed, having full knowledge of the plan, be able to stop it in time to save the world. Why is she telling me about the importance of this binder? Why are you telling me about the importance of this binder? I ask. That's funny when I do that. To me, that's funny. I don't know if other people think that's funny, but I think it's funny. Author's note. Okay, back to the story. We want to impress upon you the significance of the work we are doing here, and though you were initially brought here by deception, we want to embrace you into our family as our first live trial for our personalized strain of the virus. Dr. Sutton is a villain, an evil, maniacal villain, and old Frank is her henchman. Both of them look pleased to death right now at the thought of their experiment progressing so well. I'm not a scientist, but I took a psychology class last year, and I seem to recall something about informed consent being really important in research experiments and live trials for drug testing. I get them to stop smiling with that quip. Again, in time, I expect you will understand, Eric. If you are looking for an apology from me, you won't find any. Dr. Sutton becomes all business. Don't worry, I won't ask for one, not right now. I'm too confused. Maybe you can clear up some things for me real quick, I ask. Sure, what's on your mind? Dr. Sutton sits back down in her chair and waves a hand, inviting me to take a seat as well. I take her up on the offer and sit across the table from her. Rachel told me the CDC, or the agency, whatever you're calling it, sent you here. Is that true? I ask. No, they did not send us here. We came here on our own, Dr. Sutton says. So you left Atlanta and have been living here ever since, and Rachel didn't know anything about that? We told Rachel the CDC was sending us here because we didn't want her to worry and feel like a fugitive, but it was still important that she keep our secret safe. So we told her that they keep tabs on us. They wanted to kill us, fearing an outbreak, but our team knew enough about the virus to know that the likelihood of such an event was minimal. When she said she's been lying to her own daughter for several years, on top of what she has done to me now, I have a hard time trusting her. I ask my next question. What is this about me being a pioneer? This is the exciting part, Eric. We've been studying the virus in ourselves for 3 years now. We've been doing experiments with strains of the virus. We've done animal trials with what looks to be our optimal strain, but haven't introduced it to a human yet. Not until you walked in the other night. You're the first human trial for the new virus. Obviously, the virus is sustainable as we are living proof, but there were a few things we wanted to improve to make it stronger. We believe we have achieved that. And look at you, you've transitioned quickly. Dr. Sutton says this with all the pride of a young parent watching her toddler throw and catch a ball for the first time. Did I mention that pioneers are usually volunteers, or at least forced by necessity to enter into their pioneering? No response from the monster gallery. I go on. Tell me this. Did Rachel know you were going to make me your first test case? Did she bring me here to do this to me? Dr. Sutton says, I told you she didn't know the full story, but that doesn't mean she didn't bring you here with the hope of making you a zombie. You were the first friend she has ever brought home, and she told you about us before she brought you here. Is that correct? Maybe she wanted you to join our family before we decided that ourselves. This gives me reason to pause and think. Rachel indicated that her dad's attack on me was spontaneous, but it sounds like I was marked as a trial case already. If Frank is here now, then he wasn't a threat then, which means the Suttons were never planning to leave town, and that makes the story Rachel gave me full of holes. I think someone is lying to me, but I don't know who. What about Frank? I look over at him, and he looks up at me with a bit of surprise on his face. I look back to Dr. Sutton. You told Rachel that Frank was going to do something to cause an outbreak, and you were against that. I guess that was all a lie? She said Frank left town and hadn't been back since, but here he is now, and you don't seem to be at odds with each other. Rachel was mistaken. Frank and I are working together on this project, Dr. Sutton says. I did just get back in town, however, so maybe Rachel's imagination ran away with her, Frank adds. I see. I'm forgetting my plan to be cooperative in the interest of finding out more information about what's really going on. So you chose me to test the new virus on, and then conveniently Rachel brought me here. I suppose you can call it convenience. It doesn't matter now. You're a part of our family, and now we will get to see the effects of the virus in you. This is exciting, Eric. Dr. Sutton is back to her car salesman tone. I need to talk to Rachel again. Did she bring me here with a purpose I wasn't aware of? Did she honestly misunderstand what was going on here, or is her mom lying to me now? More importantly, I remember my parents. Okay, I guess I understand what you were telling me, but I have a more pressing question for you. If I've been here for 2 days, have you contacted my parents? Do they know anything about where I am or what's going on? If not, they must be worried to death. Frank responds to my query. They're here, Eric. Who is where? Who is where? I ask to clarify. He says, Your parents are here in this house, Eric. My head spins a little, like I've been disconnected from reality, but I still see everything around me. What do you mean? Frank rolls his eyes and then continues, coolly, too coolly for the topic. He is a henchman. Wednesday, after we gave you the injection, we called your folks to let them know that you had come here with Rachel but had suddenly taken ill. Your mother was most concerned. Your father wasn't at home yet. Dr. Sutton was able to convince your mother that, being a doctor, she was the best attendant you would be able to find within 30 miles. Assuring your mother that you were likely experiencing mild food poisoning or a standard stomach virus, she agreed that you could be put up in an empty bedroom here for the night so as not to move you and risk any unnecessary spreading of the virus to your family, if a virus it was. He smiles in a way that makes my zombified skin crawl. Your mother was hesitant, obviously concerned and wanting to be with you, but she consigned to the doctor's recommendation and asked if she could come over briefly when your father returned from work. Your parents came by that night. You were feverish and unconscious. They said they'd come back Thursday after your dad got out of work. Luckily, they didn't see you in the thralls of agony associated with the transformation. Happily, you won't be able to recall the severity of the pain. We don't recall it from our experiences, but we have since witnessed it in our animal test subjects and now in a few human cases. A few? Dr. Sutton just told me I'm the first. Wait, you didn't do this to my parents, I shout. Absolutely we did. Frank is one cold dude. They are in another room, experiencing the same agony you experienced. You see, when they returned Thursday evening, we couldn't let them see you, as that would have caused them to sound the general alarm. Instead, we gave them a treatment similar to what you received, and they are transitioning now. We have given you your family. We have given you your family, Eric. You will now all be together with us. Frank finishes and relaxes into his chair. I'm speechless. What do you say or do when you are in a room full of movie monsters who just murdered your family, and yet you are still able to stand before them and see them and seem to be alive? Surely this is unprecedented. It is for me, at any rate. This is where I would probably need to sit down and take a minute to compose myself, probably exercise some deep breathing, but I'm a zombie. I want to be outraged and experience powerful emotion, just as I've wanted to do since I found out they transitioned me. But I can't. I think these feelings and I feel them, but only in a brilliant flash of energy before the emotion dissipates and I'm left neutral again. Everything is hollow. Rachel told me that the virus reanimates the body's cells, including the brain. She said that means that personality and memory and anything stored in the brain still exists as a zombie, because it's all just a mass of neural connections that are triggered by electricity and chemicals. Well, she didn't say it like that. I'm putting her words into the appropriate context based on what I learned in psych last year and a little extracurricular reading I did because I found neuroscience so interesting. The point is that I continue to exist as a shell of myself. Whatever makes me me is gone, but the shadow of it all remains like computer files in my brain. The virus loads up certain files and I operate, but it's not me. I can't hold on to the emotion. Frank, I think you are a monster. You are all, correction, we are all monsters. We are all monsters. Zombies are not humans. They are virus controlled corpses. We might all look normal, no rotting flesh or anything like that, but we aren't human. You just told me that you murdered my parents and I'm outraged, but a few seconds later it doesn't even matter. I feel like I should be horrified and angry, but I have trouble holding on to it. I don't think I like it, and it confuses me a great deal. If you don't have emotion, what motivates you to do what you're doing? I slam my fist on the table as I finish and then sit down. Frank chuckles to himself but doesn't say anything. Dr. Sutton just looks at me, expressionless. Mark speaks. You're right, Eric. We aren't human anymore. You can call us monsters. I suppose we fit the definition, but we aren't evil. Society has taught you that monsters are bad and evil. Television has taught you that so called living dead are evil and murderous. You have charged us with murder. But are you dead? Are you really dead? Is he serious? They aren't evil? Are you serious? Of course I'm really dead. My heart's barely even beating. I have a virus inhabiting my body. Just because the virus is sending organized signals through my brain, which, by the way, makes no sense as to how that is even possible, doesn't mean that I'm alive. Television has taught me that the living dead are murderous. Yes, and you have proven TV right. I think these people have been too long in the world of zombies. They don't seem to have the ability to reason. Dr. Sutton takes over. Eric, you're proving a theory we have considered for some time. We know that the virus cannot completely mimic life, that is, a fully functioning brain, but it comes awfully close. And as you said, it is astounding that it can do anything, even remotely close to what it does. Your perspective right now is closer to human than any of ours are. You are closer to emotion than we are. Over time, we expect you will lose those feelings as much as we have. You'll have the feelings, but as you said, they won't last. The signals will be there in the brain, biologically, but the spirit of them, the memory of them, will fade quickly and not remain constant. We each still enjoy books, movies, and music that we previously found enjoyable. Things you enjoyed while living will be things you will enjoy as a reanimate. Only the feelings won't last as long. If you get hurt, the pain signal will trigger, but it won't be sustained. When you experience joy, you'll feel it, but it will fade. But emotional ties to people seem to fade to non existence. Mr. Sutton and I know we were once married and loved each other deeply, but those feelings no longer exist for us. There is seemingly no need to love or to be loved in the virus, and then it is manifest through our brains and to our conduct. So what you are telling me is that I am angry that you killed me and my parents now, but it is only a reaction, not a feeling, not a real feeling? That in the moment I recognize what happened, I react to it, but after the initial reaction, the thought has no lasting presence or effect on me, I ask. That's a very astute way of saying it, yes, Dr. Sutton says. Well, that's dumb, I say. Tom laughs at my comment and then stands up, stretches, and leaves the room, saying he is going for a cigarette as he passes through the doorway. Um, I don't know if I have time to finish this. Pause. This is why I told you that in time you will understand, because you won't be tied to all of these emotions anymore. You will then be able to appreciate what we have done for you and your parents. Dr. Sutton puts on her sweet voice as though she is talking to a hurt child. I guess she has taught herself to use this voice for manipulative purposes, because she just admitted that she doesn't care about me or anyone else. Oh, and Eric, will you stop saying that we killed you? It isn't very nice to hear, and it really isn't completely true, she adds. No, doctor, I won't stop. You did kill me. And according to Frank, you also killed my parents. We are dead. If I can't hold on to an emotional feeling by my own control, then I am dead. If what you are saying about all of this brain stuff is true, then in time I suppose I will forget the heat I feel right now, and maybe then we can all sit back and laugh. All sit back and have a laugh over a steaming hot cup of brain juice about how crazy I was upon transitioning. But until then, until the virus runs every part of who I am out the window, I'm not giving this part up on my own. You killed me. Upon finishing my speech, I have the urge to stand and applaud myself, but I don't. I'm sorry you feel that way, Eric, Dr. Sutton says and stands up from the table. I'd like to see my parents, I say. Frank starts. I can take you, but he is interrupted by Dr. Sutton. It might be easier if you stop thinking of them as your parents, Eric. The meaning associated with that link will soon be dormant in your mind. You might want to start getting used to it. Her tone is harsh and cold. How anyone can sound like that without emotion is beyond me. This zombie thing is confusing. A moment ago, you were welcoming me into your family. Now, family doesn't matter? I say. Caught in her manipulation, she doesn't respond verbally, but her eyes try to cut through me. She's not going to respond. May I still see them? I ask the doctor. Frank, take them to their room if you don't mind. She leaves the room and kicks the stop holding the door to the kitchen so that it swings slowly closed behind her. I look to Frank and nod. He stands up and smiles and waves a hand indicating for me to follow him. Mark announces he'll come with us. We don't have to go far. Excuse me. We don't have to go far to find the room my parents are being held in. There's a door recessed a bit alongside the stairs. It seems like a good location for a closet, but the door opens into a rather spacious room. I suppose this would be considered a den if it hadn't been transformed into a makeshift laboratory for studying deadly viruses. Carpeting remains along the edges of the walls, but it has been torn out of the middle of the room, exposing the concrete slab of the house's foundation. Several metal tables are lined up with all the standard glassware and small electronic devices and machines one would expect to see in a chemistry lab. There are plastic boxes stacked all around. Some furniture is gathered in one corner of the room. Likely it hasn't been touched since it was piled there years ago when this room was converted into a lab. Some old pictures, like the ones upstairs, still hang on the walls. Along one wall are a few animal cages, but they appear to be uninhabited at the moment. As I survey the lab, Frank makes his way to a door in the right wall. He opens the door, but doesn't enter the room. It is dark in there. Must not have any windows. Your parents aren't here, Frank says. I walk over and look inside, but still can't see anything. Have any lights in there? The switch is inside on the left, Frank says with a smile. I step inside and reach for where I'd expect the switch to be, but before I can find it, I'm pushed forward and I fall on my face. The light flooding in from the lab disappears as the door is pulled shut behind me. Realizing there isn't much I can do at the moment, I stay lying face down to think for a moment. The first thing that comes to mind is that my parents aren't actually in this room. If that was a lie, then maybe they aren't even in this house at all. Maybe there never was any contact between my parents and the Suttons. If the Suttons didn't call my mom, it is unlikely that she would have known I was here. She might have expected it after I brought Rachel home the day before, but she wouldn't have been able to prove anything, and it would have been easy enough for Dr. Sutton to convince my mom that they had no idea what happened to me or where I was. This brings a fleeting sense of relief to consider that my parents may be all right. Extremely worried, yes, but alive. So if my parents aren't involved here, then why tell me they were? And why lock me in a dark room alone? The good doctor said I was a human trial for her new virus strain. Maybe this is my observation cage. The pretense of accepting me into their zombie family was just to gauge what state my mind was in and determine what level of control they'd need to exercise over me. My defiance must have earned me these beautiful living quarters, if that is what this is. I push up from the floor. It is carpeted, likely the same cream color as the remnants in the main room this is attached to. Yeah, okay. Likely the same cream color as the remnants in the main room this is attached to. All right. I rest on my knees and feel out in front of me, considering for a moment that maybe this is a closet, which would explain why there aren't any windows. I don't feel walls anywhere around me from where I kneel, so I stand up slowly. I turn around and put my hands out in front of me, feeling for the door I just came through. I find the doorknob and attempt to give it a turn, but it's locked. I reach for the light switch again, but my hands just glide across the papered walls without finding anything. With my hands on the wall, I use my right leg as a low feeler and start shuffling to the right, intending to search the perimeter of the room. Maybe there is a lamp on a table. Only a few feet from my starting position, there is a dresser or a wooden chest or desk or something. I reach down with my right hand and find that it isn't very tall, whatever it is. The top is smooth and rounded on the edges of it. I slide along the side of it. There is nothing attached to it on the top or sides, and no light, which is my primary target. The end of the object is snug in the corner. I guess this wall from the door is about 10 feet. I start feeling along the side wall, and my foot makes another contact after a few side steps. Again, I reach down and find this object to be as low as the previous one. I reach across it and find the back wall. Suddenly, I recognize what these objects are: coffins. If my heart were operating at normal human standards, I'm sure I'd have that sensation of it skipping a beat and jamming up into my throat. But I'm a zombie. I have a flood of anxious fear soaked through my brain, but then it stops. For a few seconds, I appreciate this new inability to feel. I try not to form the thought again, but how can I avoid it? Frank said he would take me to my parents. He brought me to this room, and there are two coffins in it. What other conclusion can I draw right now? I use my zombie power of apathy to put those thoughts off for the moment and continue my circuit around the room. Beyond the casket, the wall extends a few feet past where I figured the door should be on the opposite wall. I find the other side wall without coming into contact with anything on the wall or the floor. Nothing on the side wall either. As I round out my search and find the door jamb on the original wall, I also find a light switch. It's at the right height, but why would it be on the side of the door with the hinges, especially when the door opens inward? As I contemplate the awful architectural design, I flip the switch. The room is instantly filled with yellow light, and instantly I regret having done it. As I turn around to face the room, I realize I can't block the idea that my parents are lying dead just a few feet from me when I can see the coffins plain as day. I don't want to open them up, and I can't right off, as the return of the anxious fear has paralyzed me momentarily. But it fades, and I have to know. I take a step forward. I take a step towards the first coffin, and the pain of fear floods my mind again. I close my eyes, and a few seconds later it dissipates. Man, this is annoying, I say aloud to myself. These thoughts trigger an emotional reaction which releases the chemicals which feel like anguish, and then it's gone as quickly as it comes on. It's not comfortable. Before my transition, I would just sit down and cry it out, then move on, I suppose. But now I have to keep reliving the intensity of the pain fresh each time I react to the thought. Dr. Sutton said this would fade. I hope it does, although I fear that means losing more of my me. For now, I need to open a casket and see if it holds my mom or dad. I struggle through another bout of feeling and kneel alongside one casket. I don't know how I'm going to react to whatever I find once this lid is open. I slide the heavy box away from the wall, make room for the hinges on the lid to open, and then fix my fingers under the edge of the lid and lift. I forgot all about that. It's the end of that chapter. As I was reading it, I was like, wait a second. I don't remember writing any of this. I guess I won't say anything more. But then I remembered when I got to that part. When he got in the room, then it started coming back to me. Cool. All right. Well, that was chapter 13. I guess I'll post it. Why not, right? Maybe I'll post it tomorrow, which will be today, which will be whenever you're listening to this at this point. Um, yeah. I don't know what I'm waiting for. Bye.